In today's episode, we'll be exploring the topic of designing for peripheral vision and how it can improve user experiences. We'll be discussing the best practices for incorporating peripheral vision into your design process. So grab a cup of coffee, put on your headphones, and join us for this episode of the Digital Experience Show. Let's dive in. Have you ever clicked on a button or a link on a web page and waited for something to happen, only to find an error message in the corner of the screen, leaving you frustrated? This is a common issue that arises when web pages are not designed with peripheral vision in mind. But what is peripheral vision and why is it important for user experience? Peripheral vision is the ability to see objects that are not directly in front of us, but within our field of vision. It allows us to see and react to our environment without constantly shifting our gaze. Too complicated? Let's do a small exercise to understand peripheral vision. Hold your arm straight out in front of you, parallel to the ground. Now look at your thumb, and you'll notice that the size of your thumbnail is how much your eyes can see in high resolution. But notice the area around your thumbnail. That is in low resolution. This is because the center 1% of our retina, called the fovea, has dense retinal cone cells that allow us to see in high resolution. The brain's visual cortex devotes about 50% of its area to input from the fovea, while the remaining 99% of the retina is processed by the other half of the visual cortex, which is responsible for peripheral vision. Understanding how our eyes and brain process visual information can help us design better user interfaces that take advantage of both focus and peripheral vision. When designing user interfaces, it's crucial to consider how users will use their peripheral vision to interact with the product. By taking peripheral vision into account, we can create user interfaces that are intuitive and easy to navigate. Let's take some inspiration from game heads-up display designs. A good example of designing for peripheral vision is the heads-up display in video games. A heads-up display, or HUD, is a common feature in many video games. It refers to the interface that displays information to the player, such as their health, score, and other relevant game data. If you have ever played a combat game like WWE, Mortal Kombat, or Call of Duty on your favorite console, you are able to keep a check on your health even while you are engaged in a combat because the elements are placed appropriately. In many games, the HUD is designed to be easily visible to the player without requiring them to take their eyes off this game screen. This can be important for maintaining immersion and allowing the player to quickly and easily access important information without disrupting their gameplay. I'm confident you now understand what peripheral vision is and the importance of designing UX keeping it in mind. But let's understand how UX designers and developers design for peripheral vision. Here are 10 tips for you. Tip number 1. Position important elements at the center of the screen where they are most likely to be seen directly. For example, in a navigation menu, the most important options could be placed in the center, while less important ones could be positioned at the edges. Tip number 2. Use clear and easily recognizable visual cues such as color, size, and contrast to draw the user's attention to important elements. For example, a red button could be used to indicate a critical action, while a smaller gray button could be used for a less important action. Tip number 3. Avoid placing important elements at the very edges of the screen as they may be difficult to see with peripheral vision. Instead, keep them a few inches away from the edges to make them more visible. Tip number 4. Use clear and concise labeling to help users quickly and easily identify and understand different elements of the interface. For example, instead of using technical jargon, use simple and intuitive labels like home, settings, and logout. Tip number 5. Provide sufficient spacing between elements to make them easier to distinguish and avoid visual clutter. This can be achieved by using appropriate margins, padding, and line spacing. Tip number 6. Consider using animation or other visual effects to draw the user's attention to important elements. For example, a button could briefly flash or animate when it becomes available for the user to click. Tip number 7. Test the interface with users to ensure that it is easy to use and navigate even when using peripheral vision. This can be done through usability testing, where users are asked to complete tasks and provide feedback on their experience. Tip number 8. Use consistent design elements and layouts across the interface to help users quickly and easily find and access the information they need. For example, using the same type of buttons, fonts, and colors throughout the interface can create a cohesive and intuitive experience. Tip number 9. Provide clear and concise instructions and tutorials to help users learn how to use the interface effectively. This can be done through in-app tutorials, help pages, or other forms of documentation. Tip number 10. Regularly review and update the design of the interface to ensure that it remains user-friendly and effective. This can involve gathering feedback from the users, analyzing usage data, and making improvements based on these findings. In summary, designing for peripheral vision is important because it can improve the efficiency, effectiveness, and aesthetics of a user interface. Alright, that's all we have in this episode. Thanks for joining me for the very first episode of the Digital Experience Show. I hope you had as much fun listening as I did making it. If you have any suggestions for future episodes or you want to share your thoughts, please don't hesitate to reach out to me on Twitter. You can find the details in the description. Until next time, take care and have a great day.